But we turn now to Atlanta and another police-involved shooting of an unarmed black man. According to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks was fatally shot on Friday night outside of a Wendy's restaurant after two police officers responded to a report of a man sleeping in a vehicle in the drive-thru. We want to warn you that the video of the incident is disturbing. Authorities say Brooks failed a sobriety test, and this police body camera footage shows the struggle that ensues as they try to arrest him. Eyewitness video shows both officers on the ground struggling to detain Brooks. According to investigators, he was able to grab one of the officer's tasers and run away. Security footage shows Brooks turning back and pointing the taser toward one of the officers, appearing to fire it. The officer returned with fatal gunfire. The shooting prompted protests on Saturday near the Wendy's restaurant, which was set on fire. Officer Garrett Rolfe, who discharged his gun, has been fired. The second officer, Devin Brosnan, has been placed on administrative duty. And Atlanta's police chief, Erica Shields, resigned yesterday. According to an autopsy, the fatal police shooting has been ruled a homicide. The medical examiner said Brooks suffered 2 gunshot wounds to the back. The lawyer representing the family of Rayshard Brooks told MSNBC last night that the officers had other options. Here's KCDC.
They didn't have to take this man or attempt to take him into custody because he was sleeping in his car. He was trying to do the right thing. He didn't want to drive drunk. He was stopped. He was not a threat to anyone. They could have taken his keys. They could have said, hey, what's your wife's number? Call her. Let her come pick you up. They could have done any number of things. Just because you tussle with an officer, it shouldn't be a death sentence for anyone.
And Heather McGhee, we've been talking about so many things during this debate on the killing of George Floyd. New York Times this morning is talking about the tremendous leeway that police officers have been given in this country. Let me read the second paragraph from this article. It says, although laws vary by state, police officers in America are generally allowed to use deadly force when they reasonably believe their lives or the lives of others are in danger, a legal standard designed to give authorities enormous leeway to make split-second life or death decisions without hesitation or fear of prosecution. But then the Times goes on to say the rising anger over the past several weeks may completely alter the laws, laws involving the use of force by police officers, especially in situations like the one we saw in Atlanta.
We should hope so. And I think the country is, for once, pretty united that we need an entirely different vision of how we keep our families and our communities safe. There are millions of Americans who have had something close to what Mr. Brooks experienced, which is consuming too much alcohol, it seems, according to most reports, and pulling over their car and saying, you know what, I'm not gonna drive right now. And at the beginning of the 30-minute interaction, which was friendly, where Mr. Brooks talked about visiting his mother and talked about planning his daughter's birthday party, he said, I live a couple blocks away. Let me just go home and sleep this off. And for some reason, he was then the police officers decided to put him in handcuffs. And I'm not saying that he should have, resisted arrest or gotten upset at that moment and gotten fearful, which is obviously what happened as he became terrified. But also we have to know right now that going to jail right now could be a death sentence for people. I mean, jails are a major hotspot for the coronavirus. And one thing we have to really recognize is that this is a pandemic of racial violence within a pandemic of the COVID crisis. George Floyd had COVID-19 before he was murdered. So we have to recognize that the kind of fear that stalks African Americans as they interact with the police is the clear and present danger. And that has happened because of the way police treat us. We absolutely could have had a different outcome. I think we see Mayor Lance Bottoms having taken a hard line. We're starting to see, absolutely, because of the multiracial protests in every corner of this country, a different level of accountability coming out of this incident than we have countless others, where we have not seen any kind of accountability, the police chief, the officers. But it's time that qualified immunity, which is this broad leeway for the use of force, to stop. It's time for it to end. And we need to see the Republican Party in the Senate pass a bill to end qualified immunity for the police.
You know, Mike Barnicle, I think you and I have on this show said time and again that it is hard to second guess law enforcement officers. It's hard to second guess police officers when they are in the middle of a conflict. It's hard to put yourself there. But in this case, where they had been talking for 30 minutes to a man they believed who was inebriated, and then as he was running away, despite the fact they knew who he was, they had the information on him, shooting him in the back twice. It reminded me of what happened in April of 2015 in North Charleston, where Walter Scott was shot in the back by a police officer as he was slowly running away and posing no threat, absolutely no threat to police officers.
It's stunning what happened in Atlanta. Absolutely stunning. You can train people for a host of issues.
His sound's not working.
But you
Mike,
can't train
we got to
for
work.
common
We got to
sense.
work on Mike's sound. Mike, we'll get right back to you.
Yeah,
Eddie
fix the
Glaude,
audio.
I'll say the same to you that oftentimes we have said it's hard to second guess police officers in many situations where a violent outbreak occurs, where the life of the police officers may be at stake, where they may be thinking, I may not return home to my family this evening. I may never see my children again. That's one thing. In this case, just like Walter Scott, the Coast Guard veteran in North Charleston who was slowly running away from a police officer, posing no threat whatsoever, to get shot in the back, gunned down in the back. It's just, there is no justification for that. And I'm just beyond stunned that these police officers would act this way anytime, but especially in the middle of a national reckoning on the use of police force when he posed no imminent threat or danger to them.
Before Officer Rolfe returned to declare that Brooks was inebriated and that he was going to put him in handcuffs, there was this exchange between him and Officer Bronson. Well, man, what did Brooks say to Officer Bronson? Well, I know you're just trying to do your job. And Bronson had said to him, we were worried about you because you were sleeping in your car, man. There was this kind of humane exchange between the two before the Officer Rolfe decided to put the cuffs on him. And then you think about the judgment, Joe, because in some ways Bronson and Rolfe couldn't handle Brooks. He got away. Did you see the line of cars in the drive-thru? He discharged his weapon with all of those people around, right, as the guy was running away. In some ways, we're going to have to see as the investigation proceeds. This looks like male ego. He got the best of Brooks, got the best of him, and then he just simply executed him in this way. But just think about it, Joe. You have this humane exchange. You have this row of cars of everyday ordinary folk trying to get their food, and the officer discharges his weapon, right, for a guy who's running away with no weapon. No, he's not posing any imminent danger. It's just unconscionable, Joe, in every way imaginable.
You know, Eddie, I'm sure you would understand. Let's say they were going from room to room in a house, chasing somebody from room to room in a house, and it's dark, and you turn around the corner, and a guy's pointing something at you. Maybe it's a cell phone. Maybe it's a taser. Maybe you don't know what it is, and you shoot that person while in pursuit because you fear they may have a gun. That's what the New York Times this morning called lawful but awful. But this was in an open parking lot. They saw the risk. They could have turned around and run to their cars. This guy was going to tire and run out of steam, slap the cuffs on him, send him to jail instead, shooting him in the back. Again, this is what I said about Minneapolis. I mean, this is not just one bad apple. This is a culture from top to bottom that has to change. When the chairman of the Joint Chiefs was forced to apologize to everybody up and down the ranks for participating on June the 1st, when he had to write a memo basically saying, I made a terrible mistake, that went to the culture of the military in a positive way. This goes to the culture, at least of this police department and too many police departments across America. And you should know, if you shoot a man who is lumbering away from you and is posing no immediate threat to you or anybody else, you're going to jail if you gun them down in an Atlanta Wendy's parking lot or in a North Charleston vacant lot.
You know, Joe, that seems reasonable and logical. But then you hear Senator Tim Scott saying that qualified immunity should not be on the table. It's a toxic pill in the bill. And so there's a sense in which we want to hold police accountable. They are the only ones, at least in my view, who have the authority to use legal, lethal force. And it seems to me that they should be held to an account for the use of that lethal force, Joe. This is unconscionable in every way. The guy said, I could just walk home. Officer Roof had been trained, had experienced 9 hours of de-escalation, 20+ minutes of reasonable conversation, ended in the unnecessary execution of Brooks. It makes no sense, Joe. It makes no sense at all. Although it might just make sense.
Yeah, it might just make sense. Mike, if a white teenager had done that, if a white teenager from the Atlanta suburbs had done that, you know what the cops would do? They would shake their heads, go, oh, my God. They would get in the car, and they would follow the kid and roll down the window and say, kid, you better stop running right now or things are going to get worse for you. Come on, stop running, kid. Stop running. And if he didn't, they would just keep following him into the car until they tackled him to the ground, slapped the cuffs on him.
Joe, police in every city, in every state in this country are allowed to say the 3 magic words that no one else is allowed to say and have impact. You're under arrest, okay? So this video shows 2 things. It shows an incredible lack of common sense among those 2 police officers. It also shows that the victim, Mr. Brooks, was cooperating with the police. He decides to run away. What is going on when a cop in a crowded area, as Eddie just alluded to, a line of people waiting for their pickup food, takes out his gun in pursuit of someone he knows is unarmed? Sure, they know he has a taser. They also know he's drunk. It is mind-boggling. The combination of what happened in Minneapolis, which garnered public attention and world attention, global attention, I think, and I truly believe, it was because the first time you saw a public execution, 8 minutes and 46 seconds of police officers executing a human being. And in Atlanta, you saw a stunning display. You can train for everything at a police academy, all sorts of exigencies. You cannot provide common sense to someone who lacks it. And this was an astounding case of a lack of common sense resulting in murder 2 charges for that police officer.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.